The year is 1972. The theater lights dim, the screen flickers, and a man in shadow, whispering, deliberate, commanding, utters words that will change cinema forever. I believe in America. But behind the curtain of that unforgettable scene, hidden away from the audience, were secrets. Secrets that Marlon Brando carried in his pocket, that Al Pacino feared would ruin him, that James Caan and Robert Duvall laughed about when the cameras weren't rolling. Secrets that Diane Keaton only confessed decades later, when she finally understood what she had been pulled into. The Godfather is not just a film. It is a cathedral of whispered truths, unspoken rivalries, unchoreographed moments, things that the cast themselves have admitted only in fragments, interviews, and late-night recollections. Things that, once revealed, alter the way you see the Corleone family forever. And tonight, we step into those shadows. Chapter 1. Secrets Behind the Curtain. Brando's Strange Rituals. Marlon Brando was a man of contradictions. On screen, he exuded absolute control, the soft-voiced Don, commanding respect with a gesture, a pause, a whisper. But off-screen, he was a chaos of quirks. The cast later revealed that Brando almost never memorized his lines. He demanded cue cards be hidden around the set, taped to walls, slipped inside props, even pinned to other actors' clothes. Robert Duvall would later laugh, saying, "We'd be in a scene, and I could see the script taped right to my chest. Brando was reading me, literally." Why? Brando insisted it kept his performance fresh, unpredictable. He didn't want rehearsed delivery, he wanted spontaneity. And in truth, it worked. His halting cadence, the sense that Vito Corleone was speaking carefully, measuring every word. Much of that was Brando simply reading. And then there was his infamous prank, the mooning. James Caan and Robert Duvall confessed that Brando once dropped his trousers and mooned nearly 500 extras on set. They turned filming into a competition, who could shock the most people. It was juvenile, ridiculous, and yet oddly necessary. Because while audiences imagined a somber set filled with method actors and mafia gravitas, the truth was that laughter was the glue keeping it all together. Al Pacino's silent desperation. For Al Pacino, The Godfather was nearly the end of his career before it even began. He was deeply insecure. Studio executives hated him. Coppola fought tooth and nail to keep him, but Pacino himself admitted that he often prayed for an excuse to walk away. That excuse came during the legendary restaurant scene, the turning point where Michael Corleone executes Sollozzo and McCluskey. During filming, Pacino slipped, fell, and badly injured his ankle. In his mind, this was it. The injury would get him fired. Relief. But fate was cruel. Rather than send him home, the production medic pumped him full of painkillers and Coppola kept rolling. So when you watch Michael sitting in that restaurant, trembling, sweat dripping down his face, the tension is real. Pacino was in excruciating pain, his body rebelling, his mind exhausted. What audiences interpreted as Michael's cold-blooded transformation was partly Al Pacino suffering through agony. Decades later, Pacino would reflect, "I thought they were going to fire me. I didn't think I was right for it." And then, that scene, it was like I was dragged into Michael's soul. James Caan, Robert Duvall, and the Brotherhood of Mischief. James Caan was Sonny Corleone, even when the cameras weren't rolling. Loud, brash, explosive. He and Robert Duvall became partners in crime on set, notorious for their pranks. Caan once said, "Brando started it, but we carried it too far." But beneath the laughter was real tension. Caan often butted heads with fellow actors, his fiery temperament sometimes spilling over. He clashed with Duvall over interpretations, and even off-camera arguments sometimes simmered. Yet it was this volatility that gave Sonny his bite. When Caan beat Carlo to death in that infamous street fight, his rage was not entirely performance. He later admitted he carried personal frustrations into the scene, and Coppola let him. Duvall, in contrast, approached the film with measured precision. As Tom Hagen, he embodied the outsider, not Sicilian, not truly family. He later revealed that the role mirrored his own sense of distance on set. Surrounded by Brando's eccentricities, Pacino's insecurities, and Caan's fire, Duvall often felt like the one holding the fragile balance together, just as Hagen did. Diane Keaton, the outsider's outsider. Then there was Diane Keaton. She was not an obvious choice. Known for quirky, comedic roles, she was a gamble as Kay Adams, Michael's WASP girlfriend. Coppola chose her precisely because she didn't fit. Keaton herself admitted she never fully understood what was happening on set. Surrounded by men playing mafiosi, speaking Sicilian phrases, growling in deep voices, she felt misplaced, invisible, and that was exactly what Coppola wanted. Decades later, Keaton confessed, "I felt like Kay, like I wasn't supposed to be there. They were making this masterpiece and I was just watching, trying not to ruin it." Her sense of alienation translated perfectly into her performance. Kay is the audience's window into the Corleone world, always just outside the circle of power, and Keaton's discomfort gave her that authentic fragility. The lost scenes and forgotten secrets. Not all of The Godfather survived the cutting room. One of the most shocking cast revelations came years later. Michael's revenge on Fabrizio, the bodyguard who betrayed him in Sicily. Coppola originally filmed a scene where Fabrizio was blown up in his car, a chilling echo of Apollonia's death. But the scene was cut. The audience never saw Michael's vengeance completed. Another truth: the mob itself had eyes on the production. At first, real crime families were wary, even hostile. Word spread that the mafia might disrupt filming. Some cast members quietly admitted they felt the pressure. But eventually, the real mob offered support, even consulting on details. In some cases, extras in the wedding scene were said to have had real-life mafia connections. And then there were the shadows. Cinematographer Gordon Willis, nicknamed the Prince of Darkness, deliberately plunged characters into near blackness. Actors later admitted they didn't even realize how much of their faces would disappear in shadow until they saw the final cut. What some feared would be a mistake became an iconic signature, the darkness that swallows Michael as his soul corrodes. Chapter 2. The character arcs reinforced by these revelations. The beauty of The Godfather lies in its illusion, that everything was carefully planned, precise, destined. But the cast's later confessions prove the opposite. Much of its genius was born from imperfection, insecurity, accident, even mischief. And strangely, those flaws only deepened the characters. Brando's dominance. On set, he was unprepared, whimsical, reading from cue cards. Yet this method gave Don Vito his aura. The pauses, the searching eyes, the weight of silence before a line. These weren't scripted. They were Brando, buying time, letting the words come. In doing so, he made Vito Corleone feel like a man who measured every breath, every syllable, with the weight of an empire on his shoulders. Pacino's torment. His self-doubt mirrored Michael's own transformation. Pacino was not a confident star. He was terrified, wounded, almost begging to be dismissed, and that trembling uncertainty seeped into Michael's early scenes. Then, when the restaurant shooting forced Pacino to channel his physical pain into the role, Michael hardened. What audiences saw as Michael's soul freezing into ice was, in truth, Pacino fighting through agony. The performance was lived, not acted. Caan's volatility. James Caan's natural temper and fiery arguments translated seamlessly into Sonny. His improvisations, the explosive gestures, the swagger, made Sonny a man who burned too hot to last. When Sonny died in a hail of bullets, audiences felt the tragedy of wasted energy. Caan admitted later that he poured his real frustrations into that character. Sonny wasn't just a role. He was Caan unrestrained. Duvall's detachment. Robert Duvall stood apart just as Tom Hagen did. He was pragmatic, calm, quietly critical of the chaos around him. His subtle jealousy that he wasn't the blood son came from truth. Duvall often felt overshadowed by Brando's antics, Pacino's turmoil, Caan's fire, and that sense of being the other gave Hagen his aching realism. Keaton's alienation, Diane Keaton's awkwardness, her admitted confusion, translated into Kay's lost innocence. Watching the Corleone family consume Michael, she became a living mirror for the audience. Horrified, helpless, unsure how she had ended up in this world. Her vulnerability wasn't crafted, it was real. What we see then is not just performance, it is life bleeding into art. The cast's confessions prove that The Godfather worked because it allowed human fragility to stay in the frame. Chapter 3. The Big Reveals. And then come the revelations that change how we view the film forever. The restaurant shooting. Revisited. For decades, fans marveled at Pacino's transformation in that moment. But when Pacino finally admitted the truth, that he was literally injured, doped with painkillers, sweating from both pain and fear, audiences were forced to reimagine it. Michael's shaking hands, his hollowed stare, his desperate grasp at composure. It was Al Pacino barely holding himself together, and that fragility became myth. Brando's improvisations. The cat in the opening scene, Vito stroking it as he listens to Bonacera's plea, wasn't in the script. Brando found the stray cat wandering the set and picked it up. The animal purred so loudly it nearly drowned out the dialogue. Coppola considered cutting the scene, but Brando's instinct gave Vito a disarming tenderness. Without that improvisation, the Don's duality, ruthless yet loving, might never have been established. The mooning contests. At first glance, it seems like childish mischief. But imagine this. Brando, Caan, and Duvall laughing hysterically, their camaraderie deepening while filming one of the darkest films of all time. That laughter seeped into the family dynamic. Off-camera bonds bled into on-camera intimacy. Even their pranks served the film's authenticity. The cut revenge of Fabrizio. Michael's cold justice was meant to extend far beyond what we see. The scene of Fabrizio's death was filmed, a car bomb echoing Apollonia's fate, but later removed. Without it, Michael appears to leave loose ends, a crack in his otherwise merciless nature. Fans never figured out that the Corleone's reach was meant to be absolute. The missing footage, once revealed, reframes Michael not just as ruthless, but obsessive in vengeance. The shadows themselves. Actors later admitted they didn't realize how much Gordon Willis's cinematography would bury them in darkness. Michael's face, swallowed by shadow in the final shot, it was not merely symbolic. It was a directorial gamble that the actors only understood later. What audiences thought was a carefully scripted arc was, in truth, a visual accident embraced in editing. Together, these truths unravel the myth of The Godfather as a flawless machine. It was messy, improvised, accident-prone, and that very messiness is why it feels alive. Chapter 4. The outro. Picture the final image. Michael Corleone, the door closing, his face swallowed in shadow, Kay staring as her world collapses. For half a century, audiences believed this was destiny, a perfectly engineered transformation. But now, we know the truth. Behind that door were trembling actors, broken ankles, hidden cue cards, pranksters pulling down their trousers, a stray cat purring too loudly, and a director praying not to be fired. And yet, out of that chaos emerged perfection, out of imperfection, immortality. The Godfather endures not because it was flawless, but because it was human, because Brando's quirks, Pacino's fear, Caan's rage, Duvall's distance, and Keaton's alienation bled through the screen and became myth. So when you next watch The Corleones, remember this: every shadow hides a secret, every line has a tremor of truth, and every silence is haunted by the laughter, pain, and humanity of the cast who lived it. Even now, 50 years later, the family still whispers from behind the curtain. And maybe, just maybe, that's the secret fans were never meant to figure out. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment down below as it helps support this channel. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our newest videos. Thanks for watching.